Good morning, everyone. You may have noticed that the title of this sermon is partially in Japanese. You should have seen Pete Davis's face when he asked what to post on the marquee outside. The phrase is pronounced ki o tsukete, and is roughly translates to the English that is beside it, which is take care of yourself. Please be careful. It's what you would say to someone who is leaving to wish them well on their way. The first character, ki, is one of those words that doesn't cleanly translate to English without losing some fidelity. You could say it means energy, spirit, presence, breath, in some cases even air. You find it in words like genki, which means healthy or vigorous. So when you say, how are you? Genki desu ka? Is it that you are of good spirit? Is it that you're well? It's also the key in the word aikido, the martial art that I practice. Ai means harmony. Ki, energy, vital spirit. Do is way, or the method. So this is a practice about harmonizing your own energy with your partner's rather than opposing it. So ki o tsukete, the title of the sermon, is composed of ki, energy, and the verb tsukeru, which means to attach. It is a wish that one will fasten their attention, fasten their energy to the task at hand, to be mindful, to take care. So this summer, I completed my 10th year here as music director. So this community has generously provided a 3-month sabbatical this fall, beginning in September. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to rest deliberately and to tend to my own spirit. So I've tried to reflect deeply on what it means to practice self-care, which these days feels like kind of a fraught subject. If you had to just blurt out an exaggerated example that perhaps you've seen in modern culture of self-care, what might you say? I'm kind of looking for the silly ones. Eat ice cream, that's a good one. Spa day is a good one. Drink Budweiser, for sure. Yeah, the list goes on. There are comedy skits about it. It's really fun. And it's not to say that those things can't be proper self-care, but I do think, well, actually, before I move on, what are some examples of what you might think of as more substantial self-care that really do nourish you? Meditation, yoga, body practices, walking with nature, what? Tai Chi. Wow, a lot of movement based. Not a lot of thinking, is there? Healthy food, taking care of yourself. I think the Japanese phrase provides a good way into understanding where the line is really between some of these frivolous ideas about self-care and self-care that is self-nourishment. Not avoidance of difficulty, not self-pampering. This nourishment emerges from the way we pay attention and apply our energy to the here and now. And certainly, the practices that help cultivate that sense of attention. So, I want to try a little experiment here, a little exercise, and this may feel a bit yucky, but I promise there's a way through it, so do your best. Stick with me. So what do we need self-care from? Why do we need these things? Stress. It pretty much covers it. Chaos, stress, what's going on in the world, what's going on in your own life. Here's a few other ones. Not that you don't know what these are, but hearing it usually makes a difference in how you feel, and that's the point. There's a climate catastrophe. It kind of feels urgent and unavoidable. There's a lot of gun violence, racism, systematic injustice, despite decades of activism. Feels like we're going backwards sometimes. Democracy feels very fragile right now. Many feel like they're watching the slow erosion and have no tools to stop it. There are wars, there are mass displacement, there is suffering worldwide, provoking grief and helplessness. Isolation. Social media simulates connection but often leaves people feeling lonelier and more reactive. Many are hungry for deep personal relationships but don't know how to cultivate them. Even progressive folks sometimes feel spiritually starved, unsure how to return to the mystery or sacredness of living. We have distrust in institutions, including churches, oftentimes warranted. And yet there still remains a hunger for meaning and beauty and ritual. We have compassion fatigue. We're burned out from paying attention. And self-care doesn't touch these things, really, not the kind where you're eating ice cream and drinking Budweiser. Do we need to keep going? The list is very long. Do you kind of feel some of these things in your chest? If not now, you have. You know what that feels like, especially when we feel it all at once. There is powerlessness in the face of such vast suffering, and the human animal did not evolve to think about 8 billion people's worth of problems at once. This is not very fun. But the feeling, not thinking about it, the feeling that emerges from it is a very, very powerful teacher. And it's very important to be able to recognize the feeling. If you don't feel it yet, please add your own personal thing onto the pile. What are the personal pains you've been dealing with? What's that long-standing problem that's been following you around? What have you swept under the carpet of your life? Ugh. Oh yeah, that thing. If you're honest with yourself, you just thought of it. Even if you didn't open the file, you at least saw the label. Ugh. And right about now, you might be thinking, I should have stayed home today. Can we get to the good part? I need a spa day. I don't want this feeling. This guy is making me feel this way. I wish he'd stop. We didn't even get to the big existential ones. Existential? That's a word. Existential ones. Oh, so you could propose a spa day for this. It might make you feel better. If you decided to go to a spa today, would those problems still exist? Well, yeah, but maybe not to you in that moment. They don't exist to the person who's in the spa day as compared to what you're feeling now. You have to carry a problem around for it to be real in your body. And there is a lesson there. There is insight about problems, about the nature of thinking and what that has to do with it, and about the nature of attention. So, just a little bit more of a philosophical dive into the nature of the problem. And because I'm a philosophy junkie, I like to go back as high up as possible. And so I'd like to explore this through the voices of two people. One is Dr. Ian McGilchrist. He's a philosopher, a psychiatrist, and a theologian, and I dare say one of the most important thinkers who is living. The other voice is Jiddu Krishnamurti, the deeply insightful Indian writer and speaker, I think who lived until the 80s. He shirked being labeled as any kind of guru or teacher or sage. So he often just said, he just points things out. So with McGilchrist, the largest body of work that he did was on the two hemispheres of the brain and the differences well, I wrote it down, let me read it. McGilchrist's central theme is that the divided brain reflects two radically different ways of attending to the world. That is, both hemispheres actually are involved in every task, but they bring to it their own way of attending. So he's not talking about this kind of cliche, simplistic, logical left brain and creative right brain. There's something more profound. The left hemisphere specializes in grasping, manipulating, and narrow attention. It's the attention of the predator in nature, focused on a single thing. It breaks things down, it categorizes, it abstracts. It gives us maps, language, the Broca's areas in the left hemisphere for words, and tools, tool use. But the left hemisphere can't see the whole picture at once because it works with parts. The right hemisphere specializes in broad, open, sustained attention. It's the attention of a tiger. It sees the whole, perceives relationship. It lives in metaphor, and it connects us to what is embodied and alive. McGilchrist would say, the right apprehends the world as it is. The left comprehends the world and makes it understandable. See where this is going yet? He proposes that in healthy cultures, the right hemisphere is the master, leads with its broad relational vision, while the left, the emissary, serves by handling detail and execution. But in modern culture, we seem to have flipped this balance. The emissary has usurped the master. We overvalue analysis, abstraction, bureaucracy, technology. We undervalue presence, intuition, interconnectedness, and the sense of the sacred. We certainly need both. As McGilchrist is fond of saying, he's not trying to vilify the left hemisphere. After all, it's his second favorite hemisphere. But it is the left in the first place that poses it as an either-or situation, while the right hemisphere as a both-and. And the thing is, we need both either-or and both-and. Our culture places so much importance on knowledge, which is obviously very useful, but do we understand that all knowledge and all concepts are representations of the world and not the world? Concepts are ways the brain takes what is real and true and alive right here now and turns them into ideas that can be grasped, understood, manipulated, logicked about. The world as it is not that way. It is constantly dynamic. It is ungraspable because it is not representable. It is not separate. The left hemisphere frames things in terms of discrete problems that require solving, but then it limits the questions and the possible solutions to its own toolkit. What is measurable? What is linear? What is technical? It rarely considers solutions that come from relational insight, from intuition, or holistic perception, the domain of the right hemisphere. So our experience of the world, and indeed of ourselves, is directly related to the way we attend to it. We see in the way that we see. McGilchrist often says then, therefore, attention is a moral act. So, friends, our attention is being harvested 24 hours a day. And I think we already know this in one way. The societal tools that have emerged here are designed to do that because we need that to happen. It works. We need to get people's attention. All technologies and all tools will be used towards the noble and towards the malicious. This is not really a debate just because we use the word should. Every spectacle designed to pull us into a state of reactivity, to keep us caught in cycles of fear and outrage and desire. To react is to fall into the trap. But to ignore it is to be complacent. In the face of terrible suffering, what choice do we have? Says the hemisphere which sees things in terms of dichotomies. It's not as if we can solve problems without paying attention to them. Yeah, of course. But the lesson from the brain hemisphere thing is that the kind of attention you pay makes all the difference. Are you only paying attention to the content or also to the function? We grow very weary from channel surfing, so we turn the TV off. But do you know how the TV works? So this different kind of attention, to cultivate it, is, I think, this is the point I'm heading towards. You cannot get stuck or lost in this, either I'm white-knuckling through, or I'm disengaged. So Krishnamurti, let's hear what he has to say about this. He speaks a lot about conditioning, putting things in terms of how you are conditioned. He says, are you aware that you're conditioned? Do you know that when you look at a tree and say, that is an oak tree, the naming of the tree is botanical knowledge, has so conditioned your mind that the word comes between you and seeing the actual tree? Do you hear how he points to the same difference here as McGilchrist? That much of your experience is couched in conceptual frameworks and not direct experience, just seeing it, just touching it, not about it. He says, each of us has an image of what we think we are, or what we should be. And that image, that picture, entirely prevents us from seeing ourselves as we actually are. The moment you have a conclusion or you start examining from knowledge, you are finished. For you are translating every living thing in terms of the old. Do you hear how subtly he's saying, have you examined your relationship with your own thinking? Do you know that your thoughts are just thoughts? That your concepts are just concepts? That the story that you tell yourself about yourself and the story society tells about itself are representations, shorthand. So just a little bit about representations. If I said, who has tasted honey, knows what honey tastes like? Is there anybody who's never tasted honey before in their whole life? So if someone did, and I've never tasted honey before. Oh, you must. Here's why. How would you describe honey? It's sweet. It's rich. It's the color is important. It's beautiful. It's sticky. Blah, blah, blah. Those mean something to you because you're coming from the experience first and then representing it. You're pointing back to something in the body. But they're stuck there going, okay, sweet, yeah, I know sweet things. Yellow, okay. It's like you ever hear someone talk about the vacation they just went on, and they go on, and you're like, okay, mountains, yeah, okay. I wasn't there. I don't get the of the vista. But what you could do is say, here's a spoon of honey. Find out for yourself. Then you don't need the words. They have the experience. Simone, you're over at the piano. I might use you. I didn't warn you about this. I forgot. But we talk about this in music all the time. How do you represent music? Well, we can talk about it. I can say, well, this, and this note together, we have a label for that. It's called a C major chord. Simone, can you play a beautiful C major chord? Lovely. Did you know it was going to feel like that before you heard it, just from C major? Maybe if you've studied music, but most of us not. I think maybe we could listen closer, because there is a way to describe that. Maybe, I don't know. Do it again, Simone. It's very clean. It's a little warm. It feels like home. And of course, whatever word you decide is yours. But actually listen to it without those words, please. Just listen to the what it's like. That is the thing that's informing the words. Direct. Mendelssohn said, it's not that words were too indefinite, or sorry, it's not that words were too specific to describe music, or too vague to describe music. It's that music is too specific to be described by words. Nietzsche said, words make the uncommon common. He said, in comparison to music, all communication through words is shameless. It diminishes and makes stupid. The word depersonalizes. And we see this all the time if we stop and think about it. I could say this is a book, and it's actually a very particular kind of book. It's a Bible. There's two different words already. And I could say it's made up of constituents like fibers and ink and glue and other things. And say, okay, so this collection of materials is called a book, and we call it a Bible because it has a particular function. Great. It's good shorthand. And if I destroyed it, then we would say, oh, the book is broken. And this in particular book, that would be very bad. That's sacrilegious. It's very disrespectful. But what is it that actually has broken? These materials, which were put together in a particular function, have changed in relationship to each other. But there is nothing that is broken aside from our idea of how it ought to be functioning. Our idea of book has broken. But these are just materials. What I'm hoping is starting to become evident then is that our relationship to our own thinking and the way we pay attention does a lot to color our experience of the world, and consequently how we solve problems and practice self-care. So the task at hand is about seeing clearly into the nature of problems, not just the problem, into the nature of thinking, not just how I'm thinking about this, into the nature of attention in general. I have a feeling I'm going long. I'm going to skip this part. Yeah. So do you see why music in the context, this is an aside, just because music director privilege here. Do you see why music is so important within the context of a spiritual practice? This is not decoration. Music is not inherently important, but it provides the chance to set aside the thinking and the commentary and just experience it directly for what it is, simply. There is no path to experiencing the divine that is not also like this. Not represented, not about. The moment you say, I see the connection between the scripture and the words of the offertory, how astute that music director is. Or how lovely, or, I would have done it differently, actually, they should have practiced more. You've put an overlay onto what was already sufficient in itself. And that goes just as well for musicians performing it. So often I have said that it is not the title or the text that makes music sacred, but the quality and fullness of attention brought to it, both as performer and as listener. To do any less is to cheat yourself. And there's a little Zen quip that says that two monks were watching a sunset, and one of them, how beautiful. And the other one said, but a pity to say so. The Gibran quote from earlier, your hearts know in silence the secrets of the days and nights, but your ears thirst for the sound of your heart's knowledge. So I think listening to music with your full attention and watching the sunset are indeed two ways to nourish the spirit, to practice self-care, as is any activity that engages your full and open attention. Is Gail here today? Rowing the Potomac every morning? Cleaning your home without distraction or a wish for it to be done already? Singing full-voiced in the shower when no one's watching? Whatever you can do with enough attention that there is no room for the commentary, no room for the egoistic self, which is itself just a collection of ideas. The antidote will involve subtraction, much like a sculptor removes marble to reveal what's already present within. To see clearly, your current must be slowed enough to let the silt settle to the riverbed. And the best teacher is always whatever is right in front of you. So this is why I've used all of my vacation time in the last couple of years to attend these meditation retreats at Daibosatsu Zendo. This is a Japanese Zen temple in the Catskills. And also why I'll be devoting my entire sabbatical to a 3-month-long monastic training residency there. Doesn't that sound lovely and relaxing? In the forests of New York, on the lake, so zen. Some of you are laughing because you actually know that these retreats are incredibly grueling, with a schedule of 18+ hours a day devoted to silent meditation and other activities which will readily reveal to you the kind of attention that you are paying to them. It is a safe place to devote everything you've got into seeing into the nature of seeing. And in the process, there is blood, sweat, and tears, and great ecstasy, and utter austerity. They have been by far the most difficult, exhausting, and rewarding experiences of my life. And while I would sign my name onto that statement, I do not recommend them casually. But I will say, if it is intriguing to you, I hope you visit me while I'm there. There will be 2 Intro to Zen weekends, which allow you to experience all the aspects of monastic life without the full intensity of the retreats. There's one in mid-September and another mid-November. Certainly don't let my description scare you. If you take anything away from this talk, I hope it's that you should be mindful not to be a victim of ideas, including the ones that come from me. They are, at best, a skillful way of doing what we have no other way of doing. But the Zen route is a method that appeals to me, and so I consider that place my spiritual home. But the lessons are available everywhere if you know how to look for them, including right here at Westmoreland, our spiritual home. So to wrap this up, this very wordy exhortation against wordiness, I'm going to read parts of a message I sent to a friend recently who asked on Facebook, "How are you preserving yourselves in this time when evil is in power, and the unrelenting, devastating, paralyzing cruelty and fear and suffering all around us makes you feel like your heart is permanently ripped out of your chest?" I responded, "You have access only to your own experience, even when it's your own experience of others' emotions. If from a sensitivity to others comes compassion and a call to action, then you must equally let yourself be the recipient of your caretaking. You are not merely your body. You are the conscious awareness that underlies your whole experience. You are the Tamagotchi, and you are the one charged with caring for the Tamagotchi. Self-care as an idea has largely been hijacked by perverse economic incentives, crossing into self-centeredness, used as an avoidance mechanism. But true self-care is self-nourishment, and is our fundamental responsibility as a living human because it provides the capacity and sustainable energy for compassion and love, which is our natural state. Both everything good and everything bad that we can say about the totality of human behavior is a stand-in, a shorthand way of thinking about 8 billion individual interconnected lives. Therefore, one of the most selfless things we can do for the world is care for ourselves and solve our own BS, so that we do not add to the clamor which we summarize as society. For we are the pixels in an image that, when zoomed out, looks like war, fascism, racism, hate, greed. But that zoomed out image is by its nature an illusion. It's an emergent, shared, mental construct that is only real because we treat it as real, just like money, just like authority. We treat it as separate from the simple reality of our own individual humanity times 8 billion. Nevertheless, of course, we must act to mitigate suffering. But when we act from an external authority, from shouldness, we immediately create internal conflict. Even if we work towards a worthwhile and necessary value, conflict always leads to more conflict. To act from natural compassion is to see the state of the world and to see the state of the self with clarity. When you approach a cliff, the body reacts with fear and immediate action because you see it, not because you should react. When you cultivate the clarity of seeing into yourself, into the ways you are conditioned by the world and by your own physicality, by your own culture, then there is no should. There is only the compassionate action you might fear you won't take unless you force yourself to be a good person. But compassion is as natural as breathing. It is totally sustainable, and most of all, you are included in it. Your care of self and your care of other is not separate. For fundamentally, there are no others. So remember that you are loved. I often hear that sentence, and in my head I hear Tim Tutt's voice, because of how often he reminded us of this. You are loved. If you insist, you can say the quiet part out loud. You are loved by God. You are loved by the source of all being, by the collective unconscious, by the universe. This is not a love of volition, but a love which is built in It is beyond qualification. It is inextricable belongingness. You need not seek it, as Rumi says, but merely to seek and find the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. You are loved, and you cannot be otherwise. You are loved, so let yourself be one of the people who participates in that love. You are loved. Find a way to see it clearly. So thank you to this community which has supported me a lot, especially in this last year during a difficult time of life, and which continues to be a life-giving presence. While I'm away, and at all times, please take care. Ki o tsukete.